Thank you all for returning to Journey into Irish Music, the podcast. Episode 3 today features John Vento. And John Vento isn't an Irish musician. So you might ask, why am I talking to John Vento? Well, you'll have to indulge me a little bit here. John is the founder of, or one of the founders of Steamworks Creative in Pittsburgh. On the Bob Banerjee and John McCann episodes, you heard them talk about Steamworks and John Vento and what amazing work he's doing there. Steamworks, if for nothing else, is a small 50-seat venue dedicated to the artist. There's no alcohol sales. There's no distractions. It's a place where artists can perform for a small group of people with no distractions and really just focus on their performance. But beyond that, John also founded Band Together Pittsburgh and also works with the Autism Foundation of Pittsburgh to support the autistic community, and especially the musical autistic community in Pittsburgh. That is something that's very close to my heart, because I don't know if any of you realize, or I don't know if I put it down anywhere, but I am autistic on spectrum, whatever you want to call it. I am that. And looking into what John does and what he has done and continues to do really struck a chord with me. And I really wanted to talk to him and find out what he was really all about. So I hope you enjoy this episode. And also, I want to thank John and Skip Barr for sending me a copy of Open Stage by Skip Barr. And this is what we've also talked about in the episodes. It's a book of portraits of musicians in Pittsburgh, and, you know, those who have graced the stage at Steamworks Creative, and just a wonderful sort of cool book. And we learn more about this in the episodes. So I really hope you listen. And I want to thank you so much for sending me a copy. This means a lot to me. And it meant a lot to me to talk to John. So I want to thank you again, and I hope you enjoy the episode. 30-second intro starts now. John Vento launched Steamworks Creative as a collaborative venture with a group of performers and dedicated live music lovers. Steamworks Creative is dedicated to performers designed to be free of distractions. John is also a musician, best known as the lead singer of the Needs Hotel Band, voted Pittsburgh's best bar band in 2016, and a businessman. Local charities have benefited from musical talent over the past 20 years. He's helped raise more than $250,000 for Pittsburgh causes. John's charitable nature and work ethic have recently been extended to a new venture in 2016, along with Wrong, Moondog Esther. John Penn and Band Together Pittsburgh, a 501c3 organization designed to create and support musical programs for those on the autism spectrum. Also a member of Lupus Foundation, Pennsylvania Board of Directors. John can rock with the best of them. His love of singer-songwriters like Harry Chapin, James Taylor, Cat Sim serves as inspiration in launching Steamworks Creative. 30 seconds! Kill the intro! The history of Irish music is as rich and magical as the island itself. The history of Irish music is as rich and magical as the island itself. Even down to join me as we travel across Ireland, and even down to the local pub to discover what makes Irish music so fascinating. This is Journey into Irish Music. For tuning in, I don't even know how to say it, to Journey into Irish Music podcast. I'm your host, Craig Mayhem. Thanks for coming back. With me is John Vento, founder of Steamworks Creative in Pittsburgh, with their awesome logo. As you can see behind us, very professional. And I wanted to talk to John because my past 2 episodes with Bob Banerjee and John McCann, they spoke very highly of John. And when I went to the website, Steamworks Creative, to see what it was about, it was fascinating. And as a musician, it was very intriguing what was going on. And then I noticed that John also worked with the Autism Society of Pittsburgh. We're going to get into all that stuff, because I don't want to tell your story, because I want you to tell your story. So thank you for being on my podcast, first and foremost.
Thank you, Craig. Thanks for having me.
Of course, and unknown podcast still, but we'll get there eventually, I think.
Absolutely.
So, Steamworks Creative is located in Pittsburgh, and it's a venue for performance. It's a performance venue, but it's not like a normal performance venue. So, tell me what the difference is.
Well, we call it a community listening room. So let me tell you what we're not. We're not a bar. We're not a restaurant. We're not a coffee shop. We're strictly a venue that has been designed from the ground up for listening to music or spoken word, including comedy. And it is a venue that respects the artist, performer, and we respect the audience. It's a BYOB, meaning folks can bring their own booze, they can bring their own soft drinks, they can bring their own food.
Right.
And it's donation driven. We call a cover charge a donation, and we share that donation with the artist. Have only 50 seats. So, that's it. There's 50 seats maximum.
Right.
Everybody has a seat. There's tables, there's counters. And I can assure you, artists do not come here to make money, because I'm sure you can do the math. You're a very bright person. If it's a $10 cover charge, if you will, or donation, that's 50 times 10 is 500, and we split it with the artist.
Right.
So, the most a 4 or 5 piece acoustic group can get is a couple $100, right? Now, if you're a solo artist, you can make $1, but that isn't why people come here.
Right.
Performers have told me over and over, they come because the opportunity is here, that an audience is actually paying attention and listening to their music and their performance. And you mentioned autism. We host monthly open mics for the autistic community. We call those autism-friendly open mics. There's no judgment. A lot of the folks come up and they sing karaoke. Some of them play instruments. Some of them do impersonations. And it's just a beautiful thing that goes on. So that's the gist of it.
So what was the inspiration for opening this? Well, first off, I think that'll probably come from telling your story as a musician yourself. So let's talk about that first, and then I'm sure, again, that'll just lead into why you wanted to start a venue like this.
I'm a singer, and I write lyrics specifically, but I have some decent melodic ideas. I never really considered myself a musician because I admire so much. I don't play guitar, I don't play piano, and I collaborate with other musicians, if you will, but
right.
Music's inside of me. So I've been blessed over, especially these past 15 years, to work with some really great people that have lend their talents to my ideas. And with my band, the Needs Hotel Band, and stuff I've kind of done on my own, it's just been really a great journey, and I've made a lot of terrific friends along the way.
And so, in playing out in venues in Pittsburgh, now in St. Louis, I know a little bit of the difference because I know folks from Pittsburgh, and I've been playing in St. Louis forever. 14, 15 years. No, more than that. 25 years, more than that. Anyway, I'm too old. But here it's kind of almost a pay to play situation where a venue will make you sell tickets, or it's based on, attendance or whatever. And you do all the promotion. So it can be frustrating to be an artist.
Sure. Same thing here. Only we don't have the pay to play, but I guess when you go to a club and you get paid, compensated by the cover charge, or the tickets sold.
Right.
But if I could, you mentioned pay to play. So there's two concepts. One is that promoters will give you the honor of opening a show, let's say with a national touring act,
right,
for a fee. And that fee is you either sell 40 or 50 tickets or you give them the money. Right. And it's so insulting. It truly is totally insulting.
Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's bullshit. But young bands are trying to make a name for themselves, and they're all excited because this touring act that everyone knows is coming in. And then little do they know that the promoter didn't sell enough tickets, so he has 6 opening acts.
Right.
He fills the room, right? We all know that story. And then the other story is you rent the room, which, by the way, is what most listening rooms that are modeled like Steamworks are like throughout the country. because I consulted with a couple other listening rooms, specifically one in Phoenix, Arizona, that is just like us, only they've been around a lot longer. And what they do is they rent the room for about $600, I think, or $700, and then the artist does their thing.
Right.
And they get a PA system, and I think they get they get a recording at the end of the night.
Oh, that's awesome.
Room, and it, you know, I didn't even consider that because that excludes so many artists, 90%. I mean, especially,
I mean, the cost factor, you know, it's nice to get a recording at the end of the night, but $600 is a big ask.
So, you know, our concept has been to share in whatever the income is, small or large. You know, the pay to play thing and the rent the room thing, yeah, that exists in Pittsburgh. And by the way, our venues, especially now going through the whole COVID virus situation,
right?
There's no doubt we're going to have venues. We've already lost 2, and there's more coming.
Yeah, we lost a big venue here this week.
Oh, really? They closed?
Yeah, done
permanently. Yeah, they're done. So, you know, Steamworks is kind of in a pretty good position because we're a smaller venue, and we have an all volunteer staff. And I don't know, did I say we have an all volunteer staff?
Yeah.
Think about that. We have an all volunteer staff.
That's awesome.
I hate to keep saying it, but can you imagine a venue with people that really care about the music and care about each other and love each other? Wow.
That's amazing.
What's that?
That's amazing. Yeah, that's, again, you know, after reading the bio, I'm like, I got to talk to this guy.
Yeah, it's amazing. And we give gas money to the sound man, you know, who drives halfway across the city, and a couple bucks to the cleaning guy that cleans up a little bit, you know. But beyond that, you know, we have rent, insurance, and utilities. So we'll scratch and claw and get by. But my heart goes out to these venues. Some of them have been around a long time. Yeah. And they have significant overhead.
Oh, yeah.
They're just not coming back.
No, not at all. There's no way. You know, in some form or fashion, in a smaller, it'll be like 20 years ago, maybe. I don't know. Your small venue or small listening room. I don't want to keep using the word venue. I want to be correct.
No, we are. We're a venue. I say community listening room, but it's also a venue.
Volunteer supported. And it's kind of exactly what bands, musicians, people starting out, or even that aren't trying to do this for a career, that's kind of what people need, right?
I think so. Yeah, I think the whole spectrum of, I mean, we had Willie Nelson's granddaughter in here last year with her little mini touring. You know, there's so much talent, both locally and of course on the road.
Right.
So we host a lot of open mics where, you know, Mr. Smith down the street who plays guitar and sings has never ever been on a stage before, but he'll come here and feel comfortable on a Tuesday night.
Right.
And my goodness, you hear some great music. And then, you know, you mentioned Bob Banerjee and John McCann.
Right.
You know, Corned Beef and Curry, those guys are just brilliant. They are professional musicians and have been for many, many years. They're on this stage also. We have Grishecki 3 or 4 times a year. Joe Grishecki, who is a well-known...
Joe Grishecki, that's right. Yeah,
he's a Pittsburgh dude. So it's a wide range, but we also cater toward what I'll call the unknown. That's where my heart is, especially the young people.
Right, of course.
Give them a stage and a platform for their own music. That's the real treat. Yeah, there needs to be a welcoming environment, which is what we try to create. And you know, you obviously your project is Irish music, and we've mentioned Corned Beef and Curry and John and Bob. We also have another act here called Tullacabby, and these guys are Irish folk music, and they're voicings and violin and mandolin and acoustic guitar. This is just a venue like this, which is a primarily acoustic venue,
right,
with a listening audience. So they're not competing with noises. They're not competing with the bar clanging and people talking and the coffee you got, espresso machine.
Right.
And I've had offers. I've had coffee people say, well, since you're only open at night, we'll come in and be a coffee shop.
Oh.
And I said, no, because are you willing to shut down when the music starts?
Right.
Because we're not going to serve coffee and have those machines going when artists are performing. It's not going to happen.
And what fascinates me most is like, that's sort of the same reasoning why they love the Steamworks Creative, from almost same speech from Bob and John. Like, you don't have to compete with TVs, and you don't have to compete with, the bar fight that's happening, or, I played heavy metal for 20 years, so there's fights and other awful things going on. So having a wrapped audience is essential. I think it can really boost your spirit.
It can be scary. When we first started, and I brought in some real pros, acoustic singer-songwriter guys that do I'll call it the lounge/restaurant scene.
Oh, sure.
The living, right? So they're in a Walnut Grove, beautiful restaurant, and their background music.
Right.
Right? Their background music. And maybe occasionally someone glances over and says, oh, they're good.
Yeah.
They come here and they stand on this stage and they look out, and the place is dead silent and filled with 50 people. And it's nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
As good as they are and experienced as they are, they've not been in that situation before. So I always enjoy that moment where they realize this is a whole different scene.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's like, it seems so elementary to do.
Well, it is elementary to do, but the financial model, let's talk about business.
Yeah, absolutely.
Selling booze at that bar and or food that keeps that venue alive.
Right.
Right. I mean, we could not be alive here without an all volunteer staff.
Right.
And without the support that we get with musicians like Bob Banerjee, John McCann, Krishecki, all these guys, they know when they come here that they're going to get a lot less money than they would at a typical club gig.
Right.
So everybody's giving in order to keep this type of concept alive. It's not, we scratch and claw each month to pay the rent, pay the utilities.
Right.
We have done that, by the way. We've done that successfully up until this thing hit, right? But we barely do it, even on a good month. I mean, to try to take income of a couple $1,000, which is what it takes, it's pretty damn tricky.
Yeah. Yeah. But again, the value is immeasurable, because even seasoned veterans, Joe Krishecki, corned beef and curry, your other, Willie Nelson's granddaughter,
Sure.
Can come to that venue and have an experience like they may not have had elsewhere.
Oh, there's no question about it. I hear it from, we filmed two really great established local artists last night from a Grateful Dead tribute band. They don't like being called that, but they're called The Cause, and they're really, really a big band here in the region. Well, two of their guys, Eric and David, are phenomenal, acoustic guitar and bass, and great singers. And we filmed a live performance of theirs last night. And on the way out the door, they looked at me and said, we love this place. We feel welcome from the minute we first played here 2 years ago. And the audience is so receptive, and it's a treat. Now, when their band goes out, they really do make big bucks.
Right.
They come here and it's like, hey, we'll pay you. They joke, we'll pay you for this experience to connect. So it's really been a blessing, and there's been a lot of magic created here.
There was a book that just come out, or I don't even know if it's come out yet. I tried to look to see if I could buy it. Skip Barr.
Well, first of all, it's a surprise to me, as it was to everyone else. Skip is a longtime friend of mine, and he's been a giant supporter of local music, not only with his heart and his attendance, but he's also quietly, and wouldn't want me to tell you this, but he has financially supported local artists in a big way. including us here at Steamworks when we first started and things were rough. So he has been an angel, we'll say angel investor, like we would call that in business, right?
Right.
And he's also a photographer, a great photographer. And he just, through the years, has taken all these photos, many of them from here at Steamworks, but not just here. I'd say probably about 70% of the photos are from this stage at Steamworks, and the others are from different gigs and different bands throughout the years. And he took all these photos and put them into a hardback book called Open Stage, photographs by Skip Barr. And he amazingly, I mean, this book, I wish I'd have one in front of me, and I'm going to get you guys one.
Oh, awesome.
It's this thick, and it's beautifully done, and it's a coffee table book, and the photos are magnificent and high quality. And then he wrote a personal note for every artist, and I think there's over 100.
Wow.
I think close to it in the book. And here's where it gets even better. He delivered almost every single book.
Wow.
And went to everybody's home and hand delivered.
That's awesome.
Things. So it's pretty amazing. He's a generous guy, and he obviously is very, very kind, and he loves music. And he's here at Steamworks probably 3 or 4 nights a week. When we get back to normal.
Right.
So it's a pretty cool thing. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, it was, the what little I was able to dig up. Yeah. It was fascinating. And again, perfect timing, because I was able to talk to Bob about it, who is Bob Banerjee, who is in the book. And what a great gift to give to your friends too.
And let me tell you quickly a little background on Skip. Skip's father was the mayor of Pittsburgh in the 1960s.
Wow.
Okay, at a time when the political machine was very, very powerful. So I'll throw you a couple people that Skip's father knew real well and that Skip had actually met. A guy named John Kennedy, President of the United States, Lyndon Johnson, President of the United States, and I can go on and on. And Skip tells the best stories, and he wouldn't mind if I share my favorite one ever.
Right. His
buddies are down in the basement smoking pot. And who's coming through in 1968 on a presidential campaign but Bobby Kennedy.
Oh, wow.
Coming to visit the house, because the candidates need the support of the major cities, right?
Right.
Skip said they looked out the basement window and they opened the window and all this marijuana pot smoke goes through the window and up comes the entourage of Bobby Kennedy. And I mean, he has so many stories. A full-blown hippie.
That's awesome. Yeah, Rob, save some for me when I get done talking to your father.
Yeah. So, okay, Bob wants me to tell you my Harry Chapin personal experience. Well, first of all, you have to understand, growing up in Pittsburgh in the mid-'60s through the '70s, Harry Chapin was a regular. He was a fixture here in Pittsburgh at an annual telethon called the Bill Burns Children's Hospital Christmas Telethon. So every Christmas, Channel 2, KDKA would have the Bill Burns fundraising event, and he would have live performances, and Harry Chapin was probably at every one of them. So I knew Harry Chapin, knew his music, I knew his face. I loved Taxi and, of course, Cats in the Cradle, and he has a great library of songs. And in 1981, I was working for Westinghouse Corporation, and I was flying from New York City to Detroit, Michigan. And I'm sitting toward the front of the plane. It was a DC-9. I remember this vividly. And I get up to go to the bathroom toward the back of the plane. And a buddy of mine who was with me was in the back. We were separated. And he grabs me and he said, "Dude, you're sitting next to Harry Chapin." I said, "I'm not sitting next to Harry Chapin, okay? I'm talking to this guy. I know Harry Chapin. It's not him." So I go to the bathroom and then I go back to my seat and I sit down and I turn to the guy next to me and I say, "My buddy thinks that you look like Harry Chapin." And the guy says to me, I get that all the time because that's my name. So here I was sitting next to one of my musical heroes. And he was such a gentleman and so interesting and funny. And you talk about education, he was a smart dude. And he was also on President Carter's World Hunger Council. So charitable giving was part of his whole nature. We had such a wonderful conversation. And we were probably about a half hour outside of Detroit. And we hit this horrible, horrible turbulence. I mean, this plane was rocking. And, you know, I'm at the time, 1981, I'm 20 years old, and I'm shaking, you know, like a leaf, and he gently, calmly puts his hand on my knee, and he says, hey, man, just relax. We're a lot safer up here than we are down there. Mm-hmm. Prophetic words, because a month later, he was killed on the Long Island Expressway car accident. And it's something I'll never forget. And of course, Bob mentioned when I do my acoustic thing, and Bob's been with us multiple times, we do a rendition of Taxi, which I love to sing that song. And here at Steamworks, we actually did a live recording of it, video and audio. And I threw it up on YouTube. And about a month after we posted it, I received an email from the Harry Chapin Foundation asking me if they could share the video.
Oh, wow.
Thinking to myself, you're asking me. I literally wept and was emotional when I saw that email. I at first thought it was fake, but I could tell it was authentic. And so they posted our version of Taxi on the Harry Chapin Foundation Facebook page and social media.
That's amazing.
And Harry's music.
I will link that below. I don't know how it's going to look on YouTube, but I'll link it below because I want to talk about how you got involved with the Autism Society of Pittsburgh, how that came about. And again, you know, it's sort of a second, maybe it should be my first thing. My first thing with this is obviously music and Irish music, but again, you know, I'm autistic myself. So I like to be able to pass on information like this stuff that I you know, would have loved to have 20 years ago, you know? So yeah, how did you get involved with the Autism Society of Pittsburgh?
Well, I am blessed to be a godparent to a young man that's on the spectrum, autistic. I have 2 cousins that are autistic. I mean, autism is a part of our world, and right. People on the spectrum are varied and interesting and beautiful and fun, and you know, that's why we call it the spectrum, right? Because right. It's a wide range of functionality and skills and talents and so on. So, you know, we mentioned the Needs Hotel Band and another band called the Businessmen that I started with. We had been involved through the years with a lot of charitable efforts, including the Autism Society early on. And I mean, you name the disease, we've done a show. You know, from, I hate to say it that way, but it's true. You're
sure.
Diabetic.
At least you don't have to run 5K, you know?
Yeah, we'll hit you with all the diseases. And about 5 or 6 years ago, I decided to form my own 501c3, came up with the name Band Together Pittsburgh, and some branding and a cool logo. And at that time, or around that time, our band, the Needs Hotel Band, was performing at Moondogs, which is a well-known club here in Pittsburgh, blues club, rock and roll. And I invited some autistic musicians to sit in with the band, a young keyboard player, a drummer, and a guitar player. So my 3 guys in the band sat down, and these 3 young guys who were of varying range of autism. Matter of fact, the drummer was practically nonverbal. He could play the drums, but he couldn't speak a sentence. The keyboard player was highly functioning and a very talented musician. And the guitar player, I would say at that time, was probably in the middle. He certainly could communicate, but wasn't very sociable. Right. So they come up as guests, and it was really great, brought the house down, their families were there, and they did a wonderful job. And at the end of the night, the owner of the club, Ron Esser, AKA Moondog, came up to me and he was like, the hell went on there? Who were those kids? So I told him what I just told you. They're autistic musicians that I met through family and friends. And he said, well, my son is on the spectrum, which I didn't know at that time. And then he brought up Band Together Pittsburgh. He had heard that I formed this 501c3. It was a shell. And he said, look, if you are willing to dedicate this charity to autism and music-related things with autism, I'll come on board as a partner and we'll supercharge this. And I was like, great, because my idea was kind of like, I don't know where I'm going with it.
Right.
So we've together launched Band Together Pittsburgh with the slogan that we create music programs with people on the spectrum. We say with because it's give and take.
Right.
Our first program are open mics, which have been incredibly successful. And we're now about to do our second virtual open mic. And I hope you send us some stand-up routine.
And maybe do some music.
You could do music, please. We'd love it. So when we're done, I'll make sure that Jim, who's been so wonderful, Jim Patulski's producing this show. So we do open mics. We have a DJ program where we train people on the spectrum to be professional DJs.
Oh, nice.
And we pay them. So they do gigs. Now, we're not going to do weddings, but we do high school graduations. We do dances. We do a lot of charitable events. Excuse me. We have drum circles where we have professional music therapists. And our most recent program is what we call scholarship. So if we have families that maybe don't have the resources, but they have an autistic child at home that has an interest in music and they need help with instruments and lessons and support, we'll fund all that. And that just came across accidentally last Christmas. We had a Christmas dance, autism-friendly Christmas dance, and a young mom came over and she said, I'd never met her before. She said, could you come and sit with us at the table? All my son does is, I know I'm making the shape, right? 24 hours a day. She said, I think maybe he'd like to drum, but I don't know. I can't afford a drum kit and I don't even know where to start. So I talked to Moondog and I said, look, we have enough connections in music in Pittsburgh. Let's get a nice little drum kit. And then we have a drum teacher who specializes in working with people on the spectrum. And away we went.
Awesome.
So what we'll do is we'll purchase the instrument and we'll give 6 months of lessons. And if the student is committed and the teacher says to us, yep, this kid's going to continue, then we gift the instrument. But until that commitment is there, it's kind of
Right.
I don't know about you, but how many young people want to learn guitar and they're all gung-ho for a month and then they put it under their bed and they never touch it again?
I did that 100 times.
I regret it. I was the same way when I was 12, 13, and I really, really regret it. Now, now that I'm 29, I should have stuck with it.
It's never too late. In your 30s, they say it's in your 20s.
I move into my 30s. I'm going to probably, Jim told me he's going to help me learn some chords. But anyhow, that's another program that we have. So what we've learned beyond the music and the fun that the kids are having, and it isn't just, a lot of our people are in their 20s moving into their 30s, but it's the social aspect for the families. Right. And an opportunity for them to connect with other parents and other families that are dealing with similar situations. It's been nothing short of a blessing. It's magic. It's
amazing how, again, showing that it's normal. This is something that happens, or autistic people, how much even a small amount of that really touches people. I've done stand-up for 500,000, whatever, how many people, and I'll always have somebody come up afterwards like, well, my son is autistic, and, it was really nice to see that, you make it seem like it's okay. And I'm like, yeah, it is. It's fine. I ended up
Absolutely.
okay.
Yeah. My little nephew, this is you might appreciate this. He calls himself the autistic comic. He does stand up. His name's TJ, and I shouldn't say little. TJ's 28 now, so he was bugging me for the longest time to do a routine to open up for the band, for the Needs Hotel band, and I kind of brushed him off. And finally, we had a show. This would have been 2 years ago, at a very friendly audience that knew TJ. I know they would embrace him because I had no clue what he was about to say.
Right.
So he gets up there and he says, "Oh, I'm TJ, the autistic comic." And I remember his first two jokes. He said, I have Asperger's syndrome. He said, "It's perfect for me because I have a big ass because of all the burgers I eat." That was good. Then it got better.
Good opener.
Yeah. And then he said, "Well, he said, I want to," he stutters a little bit. He said, I want to thank my cousin Johnny Vento, because he gave me this chance." He says, "Now, I know that most of you think he's a jerk, but I like him." And, the whole place just went. I mean, he was on a roll, right? And
Awesome.
he has since performed probably 50 times throughout the city. And he's the autistic comic. And then he gets serious and he talks about autism. And he says, "Look, we have jobs. I drive a car. I go to concerts. It's okay." It's really cool.
I'm only recently diagnosed. I've, had a hard time. I thought it was some real problems my whole life. And then, 5 years ago, I finally got a diagnosis, which made everything make sense. I'm like, oh, I'm not a crazy person. So, normalizing it is important for me. Advocating for people is important to me, because it can feel, when you're autistic, it can feel like you are on a different planet,
Is there a way that when you do, I can get what you just said for the past 3 minutes? Can I get that, like that video? Because your comments are echoed. We have a young man we work with, Justin Capizzoli. He was diagnosed, I think, when he was 18 or 19. And, he says the same thing. He stands in front of people and he says, "I always wondered why I was a little different, a little weird, and I was worried and I didn't know what was going on." And he said, "Once I was diagnosed as being on the spectrum, it all made sense. And it was like a whole new world opened up for him."
Yeah.
He heads up our DJ program now, and he is an amazing college graduate. Just a great, great young man. I love him, So if you don't mind,
Oh, absolutely.
it's a powerful message.
Absolutely.
That your statement was so beautiful and authentic. It's something the world needs to hear. And as you said, you talk about inspiring. TJ, who I mentioned, the autistic comic, my nephew, he has a full-time job. He works down in the city of Pittsburgh for the housing authority. He's their mail person, and has been the most dedicated employee they've had for like 12 years. Then on Fridays, he comes to my office. And this a few years ago, we had a meeting. I'm in the world of office furniture, design, architecture, that kind of stuff by day. And we had this meeting, and I forget how it came about, but TJ joined the meeting because one of the architects had a young autistic son, like a 4-year-old son that was just diagnosed. And TJ joined the meeting, and those two guys were talking, and TJ shared with him what he was doing and blah, blah, blah. And at the end of the meeting, this man, this architect, he said, "TJ, I can't wait to go home and tell my wife about you. Because if our son, what you've shown me today and what you've accomplished is so inspirational, our son can do this." And, it was a big blow to us when we were told autism.
Right.
And, the diagnosis, but yet, look at where you are, So it was really, really, really cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. And like, it's
Same with you, how you inspire people.
Well, thanks. And thank you so much, John, for talking with me on my podcast. Now I'm actually excited to edit an hour of audio and video, which never happens. Um, so, and I don't have to do it for class. This is actually for me and the general public. So I'm actually happy. But thank you so much. And again, yeah, I do want to talk again. And so this is
Sure.
we'll call this the end of part one.
Yes. Yes. It all started from Irish music with Bob and John, and this venue we call Steamworks Creative, and how it has the right energy and the right vibe. It really is a perfect place for Irish music and any acoustic based music.
Well, and Pittsburgh is richer for having you there, and far more richer for having everything you do as well. So
Thank
thank
you.
you. And so we'll call it there.